Best of r/malicious compliance episode 109. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Hi, this is my first post on this sub. English isn't my first language, so I'm very sorry if this should be kinda difficult to understand. My grandpa just told me this story and I thought it would fit here. So, to establish some things, the parents of my father own a couple of apartment complexes in this big city, Germany. They, as well as me and my parents, all live in this one house, but in different apartments. My father grew up in this house and never moved away. I will probably one day move to another floor. I'm 19Y/0, but don't intend to leave this house. My grandpa just told me that in the early 80s, it used to be just one story high, so really just a very long but super short house, if that makes any sense. I'm living on the third floor at the moment, so I asked how this came to pass. What he told me was absolutely hilarious. Okay, now the story. My grandparents wanted to add another floor/story to this very long and flat house, so they obviously contacted the authorities and got all the paperwork done. Everything was fine. Then their neighbor found out about this and got really mad. He owned and still owns some other apartment complexes in the same area and on the same street. He inherited those complexes from his father. My grandparents reminded the neighbor that they had a deal with the neighbor's father, that if my grandparents wanted to add more floors to their houses, then the neighbor would comply as long as he also could add more floors. All the neighbor had to say to this was, "Yeah, that's what my father said to you, but now he's dead and I don't want you to add another floor to your house. I'll sue you if you do that." To which my grandpa just replied in his sweetest voice, "Alright, do it." The reason why the neighbor could sue us for adding another floor was some weird clause in the German law that existed at that time, that stated that a house only could be so high, so that the houses next to it would get a specific amount of sun and air, so that it wouldn't cast too big of a shadow on the other houses around. My grandpa knew this was BS because a few houses in this area already had like 7 floors, so it wouldn't be an inconvenience if our house would stock up. So he went to court. He told me that there literally was a court meeting and a trial on the street in front of our house. He brought a lawyer, his attorney, police officers and some specialists from the State Department with him. The specialist said that our house could actually be 3 floors tall without robbing this neighbor any of his errant sun. With the attorney and the lawyer as witnesses, everything was settled. Then the neighbor came over and had a fit, screaming and huffing the whole time and demanded that it should only be 1 floor at most. My grandpa said, "Alright, we'll do 1 floor and then we're gonna see what we'll do next." They built the floor, and then, because that's what the specialist said, built another, right as when the workers wanted to start to work on the second added. So in total 3rd floor, the neighbor comes flying, demands to know why they're doing 1 more than they said they'll do. Police were called. The police, already very tired of this whole situation and especially with the neighbor, told my grandpa to continue building, because the concrete was already mixed and ready to use. This house is now 3 floors high. I don't really know what happened to the neighbor because I never met him, but my grandpa said that they're fine now. There was some kind of story that ended up with my grandpa actually building walls around some of the windows of the 3rd floor because the neighbor demanded some BS about fireproof windows. Definitely fireproof if you ask me. TLDR. Neighbor didn't want my grandparents to add another floor to their house, so my grandpa went to court and got to build 2 instead. Thank you. Next. I was talking to my 5-year-old. The 8-year-old starts to interrupt. "Just 1 minute, you can't interrupt," I told her. I finish the quick 5-second answer with the 5-year-old. "Okay, what do you need? Dot. What did you want? Dot. Hey, what did you want? You told me to wait a minute. I am only on 43. Thank you." Next. I am a radiology resident and luckily the facility I am working at allows for each resident to be separated in individual workstation rooms for reading imaging. This morning I grabbed one of the rooms, spent a while cleaning it all up to make it safe for me to spend the day in. Another resident, who showed up late, came in the door and demanded that I leave the room because it was assigned to him. I chose the room because I knew the dictation microphone didn't work, so all reports would have to be typed and I was on a rotation that was light on volume, so it wasn't a big deal to type the reports for me. He started to squeeze his way in / box me out, and because of his persistence I'll let him. I packed all of my things to head to a different room, got up and headed out the door. Right before shutting the door I told him, "Oh, by the way, the dictaphone doesn't work in this room." As I sit here typing this, I am watching him read case after case, which he has to individually type. Meanwhile, I have spent the day studying and relaxing in my new, cleaned room. Thank you. Next. I was and am a tech guy. I mainly rip things apart for fun. One day I am going through an old as hell computer. If you're wondering how old, try Windows XP. I got a call as it was shutting down and I was getting my tools out to work. Someone wanted me to work on their computers. This was not uncommon as the place I used to train at would send students out with experienced techs to learn. So I went to the building, an old office block, walked to the front desk, and after a brief introduction, I sat and waited. The boss came out and looked at me. "You tech?" he asked. I nodded. "Follow me," he nearly snarled as if I had already messed up. I follow him to a room where there are a couple of computers. "Something's wrong with them, you gotta fix them." Now I am the hardware guy, so I clean out the system, removing dust and unclogging the fans. Turning one of them on, it boots fine. Then instead of asking for a password, it goes straight to the desktop. Confused as I'd always need a password to boot in, I repeat the same thing on another one. Again, no password. I'm now thinking these are either brand new and they need passwords, or they're trash and need wiping. I head to the boss's office. Me: "Excuse me sir, but what do you want me to do with the computers?" Boss: "Fix them." Me: "What's the matter with them?" Boss: "Zero wiry broken." Me: "Not to me they are." Boss: "It's a login issue. You're a tech monkey, you get it right." Me: "You mean the passwords?" Boss: "Yeah, you can fix it right." Me: "Should be easy enough." Boss: "Good monkey." Me: "Right." I leave the office and return to the computers. Going to the user and password, I have a think. This time I call the boss on the phone. Me: "Okay, what password do you need to set them to?" Boss: "That's your job monkey, figure it out." Me: "Okay." I spin around in the chair again and then one of the employees walks in. A black guy. I repeatedly say it over and over. The black guy looks at me like I am a racist. He was about to go when the phone rings. Boss: "Monkey, are you finished?" Me: "Again, I need a password to input." Boss: "I don't care what it is." Me getting annoyed. Fine, so I begin to change every password to monkey. 3 hours of cleaning computers and passwords. So I deliver the computers, each one marked with the racist response. Looking at the people inside, the majority were black or Hispanic. Each got their computers, each tried the passwords they were given. The one I never received. The boss apparently wanted to see me about the password and asked me why I didn't change it to the company one. So I ask what was the company one and I will change it to it. He wanted it changed to the N word. I refused point blank when I asked him why. He told me he was the new boss and didn't want to have so many black people in his place of work. The password was his way of getting them to quit. Looking at the people at the computers, many were furious and visibly angry. One by one they walked into the office and declared they quit. Going to one of the computers, I looked at the screen. Copied to each of the drives was a schedule that must have downloaded when the computers were connected to the internet. I was going to open it to read it, but one of the men stopped me saying it's not worth it, but we are quitting and suing the company owner for it. He walks off and I open it. The document was a manifesto of the sickest things that could be said to a person of color. Turns out he had backed up his personal computer to the company server. I got paid and ran out of the building. Thank you. Next. Hey Reddit. Not 100% sure this counts, but I want to share my story. I used to work in a grocery store back in 2016. I was 16-17 at the time. I don't work retail anymore, but I wanted to share this story I still remember to this day. It was a pretty normal night right before the end of my shift. I was one of the few closers at my store, so it was just me, my supervisor, and a cashier. I worked the self-checkout / customer service desk. My supervisor had just collected the tills and was in the back counting, and I was starting my rounds to take back the non-perishables that were left at the registers. I also might add that our store had terrible camera placement. Basically it showed all the registers, and the supervisor's office door, which is where the safe was. This is important later. After putting up all the items that were left at the registers, I did my final checks of the store to make sure there were no misplaced/damaged item on the floor. I find a case of beer that was leaking in our beer/wine section, and since I wasn't sure how damaged the bottom of the cardboard case was, I had to drag it to the front so I could inform my supervisor about the damaged item before taking it to the back. We kept a cart full of damaged items to be taken out by the morning crew. Since the supervisor's office is locked while they are counting the tills, I call over to her and let her know that there was a damaged case of beer and I was taking it to the back. She responds with an absent "okay, sounds good." So I take it to the back, place it with the rest of the damaged items, and go back to the front to see if there is anything else my supervisor needs me to do before I clock out. There isn't. Next couple days are fine as I finish up the week and wait for the next week's schedule to be posted, and I find out that I'm not scheduled for the next week. I figure there must have been a mistake as there was someone working at the same grocery store who shared my first name. I go upstairs to my manager's office and ask him about the schedule and why I wasn't scheduled. He responds with "Oh, my bad, I forgot to tell you that you are suspended until the investigation is over. By the way, can you train your replacement today on the self-checkout/customer service desk?" Me, confused and annoyed at the moment, don't really pay attention to the second part of his comment, ask him what he was talking about. My manager: "We caught you stealing that case of beer that you took to the back, and until the police investigation is complete you won't be working here anymore. Please turn in your uniform, name tag, and badge." I am furious, but I decide that I would just go with bit of MC in this situation. "Well, bossman, I took the damaged case of beer to the back to be thrown out in the morning as per procedure, but since I won't be working here anymore, I guess you will just have to find someone else to train my replacement. Since I clearly can't be trusted, I was the only person who could train someone for the customer service desk other than him." His jaw dropped. The look on his face was priceless as I took off my uniform and handed him my name tag and override card. I then proceeded to walk out, get in my car and drive home. About 2 years later I joined the army, and I'm going for a job that required a security clearance. Guess what shows up? That suspension with an unfinished police report and the tapes from the security camera. I sit there with my interviewer as we watch the tape together, clearly showing that I did not steal anything. Needless to say, I was approved for my clearance. I ask if I can get a copy of the tape, and my interviewer agrees. It took 2 years, but I finally had the evidence I needed to sue for wrongful termination. But as the time is well over the statute of limitation, I am unable to actually do anything about it. Either way, I decide to go pay my old workplace a visit over my Christmas block leave, and a couple people recognize me, including my old boss. He tells me that thieves like me aren't welcome in his store, and that I need to leave or he would be calling the police. I told him to call them, and that his claim would surely hold up when I showed them the copy of the video footage of me stealing. The store had one of my favorite muffins, and honestly I really wanted one since they are only made there. The police got called and did nothing, and I got 3 muffins free of charge thanks to my favorite supervisor. Worth it. Thank you. Next. Hi everyone. I've been going a mile a minute trying to pick the best tales to tell, but whenever I think of one, my mind spiderwebs and thinks of 15 others, so I settled on this one. Now this one is kind of sad, but we're all grown-ups here and we make our own decisions and we have to suffer the consequences. This happened about 6 months into my tenure at the Vacation Inn. I had picked up the tricks of the trade pretty quickly and understood the underbelly of the hotel/bar world. As some of you may recall, Freddy's nightclub was the place to be. In any bar/nightclub scene, there is always a criminal element present, and Freddy's was no different. The squid taught me which of the regular women had a dress for sale, and if they were not regulars, he taught me how to spot them right away. He also informed me that they had a deal with Blart the bar manger. Don't ask, don't tell. I learned to spot coke dealers, coke users, pimps, madams, undercover cops, etc. just by looking at them and their body language. Prostitution was always an ongoing issue, to the point where the county sheriffs would set up sting operations about once every 3 months, both as Johns and Janes. No joke. This was the highlight of our PM shifts, as shitty as it sounds. Before I go any further, this wasn't Breaking Bad, meth prostitution. We were a 4-star hotel at the time, so 9 out of 10 Janes were beautiful women. I also learned that this is virtually the only difference between an escort and a prostitute. LOL. Iniho. Mr. Smith checks in by himself. Typical business guest. Middle-aged white dude. Nice suit and watch. Shined shoes, etc. He hears the lobby music at Tequila and asks about the food/drink situation. I tell him hours of operation, menu, introduce him to the restaurant hostess, tell him about our 50+ tequila selection at Tequila Bar, the whole 9 yards. He seems pretty unimpressed till I hit him with, if you want to stay up late though, you can stop by Freddy's, they're open till 2 AM, I swear. He was like a muck that had a slice of Kraft singles being opened. Freddy's, huh? What's the atmosphere? Tell him about the salsa music, dancing, drinks, etc. And he says salsa music? Are there any Latin women to dance with? Plenty, Mr. Smith. Plenty of sonoritas to dance with. Fucking guy. No. Fast forward to about 9 PM. Mr. Smith had a few glasses of wine at dinner, a few tequilas at Tequila, and now he was on his way to Freddy's with a little more slide in his stride. You know that very short-lived window between fun and lubricated to desperate and morose. As he's walking downstairs to Freddy's, the squid stops by the desk and says, "Hey man, watch out for Mr. Smith." He was a little too blunt with one of our regulars, asking if she'd go up to his room. I mean, that's a regular occurrence, so it didn't faze me too much. But if the squid, one of the coolest and calmest people on the planet, is worried, then there is cause for concern. So down goes Mr. Smith to try and find himself a Latin senorita. It is roughly 10:15 PM when I see 2 familiar faces walking up the stairs. One of them is a very visibly drunk Mr. Smith, who had joyfully let go of the little sobriety he had, and Jane, a well-known dress merchant. As Mr. Smith gets closer to the FD, he glances at me and gives me a not so subtle look of "fuck yeah, I got one," and I return a grossly blatant abort mission head shake. Well, he obviously didn't heed my warning and proceeded up to his room. Fast forward about an hour and a half. I'm chit-chatting with the night auditor, telling him about the day, specifically about Mr. Smith. I would normally chill with Bobo the night auditor for about an hour and catch him up on the day, either smoke a cigarette, a joint, or both. He was the older, no-nonsense older guy from the Samoan story. Guess who we see stumble through the lobby? A half-dressed, messy-haired Mr. Smith come up to the desk. He is fuming and says, "I need you to call the cops right now." "Hey, I. Take it easy, Mr. Smith. What's the matter? That bitch I took up to my room just took all my money while I was in the bathroom. She was a fucking hooker. I only have her $100 and she took the rest." I mean, he's not wrong, but what could I do at this point, right? So I tell him, "Mr. Smith, sorry to hear that you were in on IT, weren't you?" "No sir, I am most definitely not." Bobo come up and is about to set him straight when I tell him it's cool, I got this. "Mr. Smith, think about what you are asking me to do. You want me to call the cops so you can report a prostitute taking all of your money instead of the $100 you agreed on?" He shouts and screams that we are in on it and he wants to file a report, blah blah blah. So I comply and call PD. Of course PD shows up, and at this point, PD and I are first name basis and I explain what is going on. PD looks at me dumbfounded and I say, "Yeah, I know." So PD talks to Mr. Smith and asks the standard questions. Mr. Smith tells them that she had asked for $100 for her services. They made an agreement for what kind of services $100 would entail, and once services were rendered, he went to the restroom to wash up when he heard the door open and close. He walked out of the restroom to find Jane had taken over $500 from his wallet. PD gets the description and tells him, "Now sir, can you please put your hands behind your back? You are being arrested for solicitation." A very confused Mr. Smith says, "But why? I am the one who got robbed." "You can't do this." Once reality sets in and he realizes he fucked up, he gets taken away with no incident. I mean, I genuinely felt bad for the guy, but hey, we all have to suffer the consequences for our actions, right? I hope you all enjoyed this one. I work desk all week and I'll try my best to post a tale. Thanks for reading. Thank you. Next. Hello. It's not a malicious compliance from my work, I am still a trainee, but from home. So due the quarantine in Austria, we should only work when the company wants it, but I am 1 month already at home. This happened yesterday. My dad wakes me up nearly 7 AM and already complain that I am sleeping longer than I should in his eyes. My mood was happy and then angry and tired af because I got a GF 1 month ago and we both write until like 1 AM. But that's another story. So he said I should wake up normal as I would go to work. A little backstory, I always wake up 4:30 AM to have enough time for breakfast and catch a train to get into the city where I have to work, and on holidays he was pissed when my alarm still goes on at random at 4:30 AM. So I put my alarm back on, and also though, I could expand the days where it should go on the alarm. So the alarm also goes off on Saturdays and Sundays with the best song icon imaging, the ending song of the helpful Fox Senko, and I can tell he can get easily be pissed off by anime openings and endings. During the quarantine I order Alexa Echo Dot, because I always wanted one, and now I connected it with my Spotify ACC and told her that she should make her alarm at 4:30 AM on full volume with this song. So today the alarm goes crazy on and I wake up and he storms out of his bedroom and screamed at me, and I just told him, "You said my sleep schedule should be still the same as I would go to work," and he nearly slapped me. Since it happened today, this is still going on, and if some PPL wants an update, I keep this post then updated. Thanks for reading. Edit. Second day, my dad is getting annoyed I think, but he tried to be calm down so nothing happens today really special.